Hello, welcome to the Comic Book Commentary. I'm Bo Leidig, and this week we're going to be concluding our series about the original Angela miniseries with Angela number 3. So let's zoom in and take a closer look. First published in February of 1995, we see here on the cover Angela standing atop a pile of bodies and defeated enemies, including a Hellspawn, which is not necessarily the spawn you might think it is, and she is armed with a sword and once again with a lance. Also, we notice that the third cover once again keeps in line with the theme of slightly changing the background color. The cover of issue number 1 had a pure white background. Issue number 2 was kind of an off-white or cream color, and this one has almost a light blue hue to it is what it kind of looks like to me. It might look a little bit different on the camera, but it's kind of odd that they would just slightly alter that background color for every single issue. Story, Neil Gaiman. Pencils, Greg Capullo. Inks, Mark Pennington. Letters, Tom Orzechowski. Color, Todd Broker and Fierce Color Graphics. We see here on the first page a small little demon wearing what looks to be a tuxedo wandering down a long winding staircase carrying a torch to light his way. He's just going about his business, singing a little song to himself, when suddenly he comes across something that startles him in a way that he believes he needs backup for this as he runs back up the staircase to get some of his associates and brings those demons down with him as they all try to figure out exactly what's going on and what they've seen and how it's going to change the world for them. As it turns out, the demons have come across both Spawn and Angela and are wondering how they got here and what they're doing here, as Spawn and Angela seem to be in a bit of a spat with one another now, which is in stark contrast to the way we saw things end in issue number 2, as they seem to be arguing a bit, as Angela seems rather annoyed with Spawn at this point. However, their argument is cut short when she turns and realizes that they're being watched by some mysterious, strange creatures. Spawn is not amused to see that they have uninvited company and grabs the small creature by its tuxedo, lifting it in the air and, screaming, "Hey, were you spying on us?" The creature, realizing that he is face to face with a Hellspawn, decides to try and show him the reverence and respect that he believes he deserves, as it is basically inferred that this is a lesser demon. The creature introduces itself as Smut and begs Spawn not to eat him and boil him and crunch up his bones. However, Spawn gets annoyed at Smut's rambling and tells him to be quiet, even screaming at him so, and then asks him a list of questions like, who are you? What are you doing here? How did we get here? How do we get out of here? And Smut remains silent. Spawn yells at him once again, getting more and more angry, and Angela takes this opportunity to point out that Spawn told the creature to stop talking and that, they're going to have to give him permission to speak once again if they want Smut to answer the questions. Spawn realizes that, Smut may not be all that bright and is kind of surprised that he took him so literally. However, Angela takes a bit of a jab at Spawn, stating, "Oh wow, one more thing you didn't know." However, their spat is interrupted as Smut begins to explain that they're in a castle that was once inhabited by the former ruler of this level of hell, before he was dethroned by Mabalja, and that Smut and the other demons that were with him are basically now the caretakers of this castle, as there's really no one else here to watch after the place. He then takes them out of the room they were in, stating that he knows where there's a gate that can take the two of them out of hell and back to where they need to be, as he leads them through and, just kind of continues talking to them. They reach their destination and Spawn states, "Wow, is that the gate?" As we see the trio look out across the abyss, they see a gate floating in the middle of the air with a staircase leading to it. Smut confirms that is indeed the gate and that all they have to do is walk right through and it will take them back home. Spawn is kind of shocked and is like, "Wow, it's really that easy, huh?" And that's when Smut tells them that it's kind of that easy, were it not for the fact that just outside the castle in the surrounding area, there's a war raging between a bunch of demons and also some hellspawns that we can see right here. He says that they should probably be done in another week or so, as they've been already fighting for 2 weeks at this point, and they're going to be getting tired at some point or another. However, Angela decides that enough is enough as she grabs Smut by the ankle and then also Spawn, and they jump from the castle's ledge into the fray. We see Spawn's mask start to rematerialize around his face, and we also see that at this point, his costume is starting to regenerate its cape. Spawn and Angela then play the whole, angry couple communicating to each other with a third party, despite the fact that the two of them are standing right next to each other. As Spawn states, tell that woman that we don't have any weapons. What are we supposed to do? She states, tell that man that all we have to do is grab one of the thousands of weapons that are all over the battlefield that aren't being used anymore, as we see her kick a demon in the face so hard that one of its eyes flies out and steal his sword, as we see that Spawn punches another demon in the face and steals a large battle axe from him. As the two of them enter the fray of battle, we see their argument continue as Angela starts hacking through some sort of bug-like demon creature, stating that, Spawn was foolish for grabbing such an unwieldy axe and that it's far too large and that he needs to find a more sensible weapon. He, however, retorts that, he's doing just fine and that she needs to mind her own business. However, things aren't as they seem, as she sees something he doesn't and yells for him to look out. However, it's too late, as he is hit with an attack from this bat-like demon creature, which Angela wastes no time splitting in half with her sword as it tries to escape. However, Spawn states that, his shoulder is in significant pain, which he finds odd as, despite having his heart ripped out by the Violator and being shot dozens of times, he never really felt any pain from any of that, but this really hurts in a way that he hasn't hurt since he was shot back to the world of the living by Mabalja. As they continue to fight their way through the horde, Angela explains that Spawn was bitten by a vampire, and that apparently it has some sort of a very toxic venom that he has now been envenomated with, and that he'll need some sort of antidote to heal properly from it. Of course, they can't really deal with this at the moment because they're in the middle of a full-fledged war as they continue to fight their way up the staircase to the interdimensional gate and push their way through. However, it's at this point that they realize they don't exactly know how this gate works or where it's supposed to go to, as they're falling through a black darkness of just nothingness. And, they're trying to figure out how exactly they're going to get back to where they want to get back to. Smut, of course, has been brought along unwillingly and is very upset as he states that he doesn't want to be here and that he has a castle to look after. And Spawn states that he's going to just try and concentrate on Earth and hope that that works. However, it seems as though Angela may be the one who's truly in the know here, as we see her already dematerializing into a golden light form. We then see Spawn suddenly show up in the Earth realm, crashing face first into the pavement with a thud, and then he stands up to look around to see where he is and realizes that he is definitely not in New York City. As he sits down on the pavement trying to figure out what's happened and where he's at, he's then brought back to the realization that he's in some trouble as his shoulder is in a horrible amount of pain right now. And then he's suddenly approached by a random child who states that he's going to be in big trouble for being as dirty as he is, and then asks if Spawn is playing some kind of game and if he can play too, and then asks if Spawn wants to play ball with him. And Spawn seems really confused by this random little boy asking him all these weird questions. Meanwhile, back in Elysium, we see Angela's friends, Anahita and Kuan Yin, mourning the loss of their friend, or what they believe is the loss of their friend. And even Kalindra is rather upset as, she kind of blames herself for not winning the case and, proving Angela's innocence. Meanwhile, as this conversation is taking place, we see Angela rematerialize in the bathroom of her home As the trio continue to basically be really down in the dumps and, be very upset, Kuan Yin and Anahita especially is, they believe that they've lost someone they truly care about and are worried about what the future holds for them, and, state that they just have to carry on and try and live the best they can to honor Angela's memory, as we see Angela washing up in the bathtub, finally getting all of the blood from the dragon that she killed in the very first issue, and then, all of the different hell monsters that she was fighting in this issue. She's basically been filthy for like a week at this point, just covered in the blood of other creatures, and probably, really looking forward to getting all of that off of her. After getting dressed, Angela then walks out of the bathroom and reveals herself to her friends, letting them know that she's not only alive, but totally okay. Donning a new outfit, and if I remember correctly, this is referred to as her red space armor or something along those lines. We'll get to it eventually, but there's an actual name for this outfit. Of course, her friends are all shocked and overjoyed that she's still alive, as we see Kuan Yin run over and give her a huge hug, stating, how happy she is to see her again. Anahita and Angela embrace, basically super overjoyed that, they're together again. Angela then tells them that, they don't have to worry about what happened, as the three of them were trying to apologize for, their mistakes at the trial, bringing the Hellspawn, and, miscalculating, what that was going to do to the scene and how it was going to go over. But Angela states that there was nothing they could have done to help her, as the whole thing was a setup from the beginning, and that she has a way to prove it, but she's not going to get the rest of them involved. However, Kuan Yin and Anahita state that they're going to be with her no matter what, as, they're her best friends and they're going to stand by her side. Kalindra is a little more reserved, though, and asks if it's going to be dangerous. Angela states that it's not going to be dangerous for her, so then Kalindra says, sure, I'll join too. We're then teleported to Earth as we find out that Angela plans on confronting Gabriel in the embassy of Heaven in New York City, as we see Gabriel sitting at her desk filling out a report about the Violator, stating that despite what some of the informants in Hell may be telling the Elysium Intelligence HQ, the Violator is still very much on Earth. He's in human form, and that he needs to be monitored closely. However, her work is interrupted when there's a sudden click on a light, and she sees that Angela is now standing over her. Gabriel, of course, is stunned that A, Angela is alive, and B, she was able to get into her office without setting off any kind of alarms or alerting any of the security that's in the building. Angela then states that, Gabriel needs to come clean. She wants to know exactly how all this went down and why. Gabriel tries to give her a little bit of a runaround until Angela puts a sword point directly to her throat and states that she'll separate her head from her body in a quick second if she doesn't come clean. It's at this point that Gabriel starts to explain that after Angela's fight with Spawn that we saw in issue number 9, Spawn grabbed the interdimensional lance and activated it. This sent Spawn to a completely different reality, which is where we saw him in issue number 10 and where he had the interactions with Cerebus. How he got back from that reality into this one, however, is a complete mystery. Gabriel even states that it should not have been possible for him to do that, and that in doing so, he somehow altered this reality permanently, which completely, zapped the lance out of existence totally, and also erased all of the information about Angela's orders to go hunt the Spawn and the issuing of her hunting permit. Angela then asks, well, if that's the case, why did you falsify the documents and state that, I came here of my own accord and was working behind the backs of the superiors in Elysium and, was doing all that stuff and, potentially working for Hell as a double agent of some sorts. And, Gabriel basically states it's simple. It's because she hates Angela and that she wanted to, basically get her thrown in prison and executed, and that was the only motivation she needed, which is Like, holy crap, what a terrible person Gabriel is. But the best part about it is Angela's like, yeah, I guess I kind of get where you're coming from on that. I hate you too. And it's like, wow, she's just being vindictive for the sake of being vindictive. And Angela's like, yeah, I can relate to that. At this point, we see Angela respond that she also hates Gabriel, but that she's not going to kill her because she wants her to turn herself in. Gabriel says, what are you going to do if I don't? And then Gabriel starts to reason, what's the point in me even bringing that up? Even if I say that, there's no way for you to prove that you're actually innocent. And even if you did prove that, the entire host of heaven saw you escaping Elysium with a hellspawn in right by your side. So there's still that, and you have no way of getting out of that. So no matter what you do, you're always going to be hunted by the forces of heaven, and you'll forever be a fugitive. But, Angela says, I don't think so, Gabriel. Good night, as she disappears. And we then see Gabriel grab the phone on her desk and scream that she wants security in her office immediately, and that the reason why doesn't matter, she just wants them there, thinking that that's somehow going to protect her. We are then teleported to the moon, as it's assumed that, I guess, these angels don't need to breathe or can exist in a vacuum, which I guess makes sense if they're, some kind of ethereal beings. And we find out that this was all part of the plan, as Kalindra was using a recording device to record the entire conversation between Gabriel and Angela, and now is going to take that recording to, I guess, whatever Elysium's version of the Justice Department is, to clear Angela's name. Anahita and Kuan Yin are both excited by this, as they're like, this is great. You'll be cleared. You can come back to Elysium with us. And, Angela states, look, you can give him that all you want, but I'm not coming back there. I'm done. This, of course, upsets Kuan Yin quite a bit, as she states, please don't say that. You're our best friend. You're also one of the best angels in all of Elysium. You're an amazing hunter and an amazing courier. And, we really need you there, and we don't want to lose you again, as we see Angela looking off into the distance. Angela starts to ponder to herself whether or not she should heed Kuan Yin's pleas and go back, but then decides that no, she's tired of working for other people and that she's going to be her own boss from now on. Her friends then protest again, saying, you can't go freelance, that's never been done. But Angela states that she'll be the first, and that this is what she's decided for herself. Her friends look upon her stunned and, ask, what are we supposed to do? As Angela looks back over her shoulder and says, well, you can all come with me. Meanwhile, back at the, I guess, Office of Terran Affairs for Elysium on Earth, we are once again in the office of Gabriel, as she's being confronted by another, I'm assuming, angel whose name we don't know. And this angel seems to outrank her, and also states that Gabriel's in a lot of trouble, as, they've received a tape in which Gabriel admits to committing perjury at the trial of Angela when she was on the stand, and that they've also discovered that Gabriel was falsifying reports and documents that she was sending back to Elysium. Gabriel once again tries to protest and saying that she's been framed and that the people are setting her up. However, she then suddenly disappears, as the other woman states, well, you'll just have to plead your case to the higher-ups when you get there, and then sits down in Gabriel's chair and is now presumably the new director of Terran Affairs, as she hits a button and tells security to have the staff ready for a meeting in an hour, and that there's going to be some changes around here going forward. We then once again see Angela, who has now come back to the carcass of the dragon that she killed in the first issue of the miniseries, which has been picked clean to the bone. But it's not so that she could reclaim her trophy of the dragon's head. It's because she didn't want to lose the sword that she had left behind. As she states, she has grown rather attached to it, and that it holds sentimental value to her now. She then ponders what her next move is going to be, as there are many, different missions that she could take, different bounties that need collected, all sorts of different people willing to hire her for her services. We also see her depicted with a new lance, which was procured for her by Anahita before Anahita, ditched out on Elysium herself. And that we also see her smiling and smirking because despite the fact that Angela is not sure what her next move is, she's definitely convinced that whatever she does, it's going to be a whole lot of fun as we reach the end of this miniseries. The next page is once again image info. Nothing special here, just a blurb about upcoming Image comics at the time. We've seen it dozens of times at this point, and we're going to keep seeing it for a while as I go through these books. We then reach a very surprising part of this book, a letter section, which you don't typically see in miniseries, and it only appears in this one issue. We didn't see it in issues 1 and 2. It's been named Angel Fingers. And of course, because Neil Gaiman was the writer, he's the one who answers these letters instead of Todd McFarlane, like we see in the mainline Spawn series. We then find out that Neil's reason for doing this miniseries was more so because his son was a huge Spawn fan, and it seems as though Neil himself wasn't really that interested in wanting to do this series. We also find that there are some letters very critical of Todd McFarlane in here, as the pictures had been released about the Todd toys and where they were being manufactured. A lot of people are very concerned that, Todd's using sweatshop labor to produce his toy line on the cheap so that he can sell it for huge profits. At this point, we see Neil in one of his responses say, well, which is it, Todd? Are you, just a guy who's trying to create a business, or are you, a running dog capitalist who doesn't care about the working poor overseas? We then see a second letter kind of making similar accusations. And at this point, we see a part where Neil responds, well, I'll just count that as another vote for the running dog capitalist, who's exploiting the third world. And it seems as though Neil's really taken some jabs at Todd right here. And that might be the case, as we know here in the future, Neil and Todd got embroiled in a long legal battle for the ownership rights of Angela, the medieval Spawn, and Cagliostro. Eventually, Neil won the suit and was able to get full control over Angela, whereas Todd retained the rights to medieval Spawn and Cagliostro. I don't know if he had to pay Neil a fee in that to get them, but what we do know is that after getting the rights to Angela, he immediately sold Angela to Marvel Comics, and Neil Gaiman no longer owns her either. And now she's apparently Thor's long-lost sister in some story that I don't care about because #NotMyAngela. At any rate, it does sort of feel like this is kind of the early stages of the falling out between Todd McFarlane and Neil Gaiman. I could be wrong, but it sure does kind of seem that way, especially knowing what we know now this far into the future of how their relationship turned out. We then get two cool looking pinups. This one here by Betty Ballou, I believe is how you say that. It looks like she may have airbrushed this to a degree, but it's pretty cool. I like it, especially like the background in front of the stained glass window, very medieval looking. And then this one by Gary, I don't know how you say this, Gary Quadis. If you ever watch this and you're like, hey, that guy didn't say my name right, I apologize. I don't know how to say it. We see Angela, I'm guessing, standing over the carcass of the dragon that she killed in the first issue of the miniseries. However, she has the lance over her head here, which she did not have in the beginning of the miniseries because she had lost her lance dealing with Spawn. Again, it may not even be that dragon. It might be a completely different creature. Either way, it's still a pretty cool picture. I like it. We then see 2 pages of Image fan art, mostly of Angela and Spawn, but we do get a few non-Spawn related characters with Psyblade, Grifter, and Ripclaw up here. Those are all pretty cool. I always like the fact that they did this, and, it would have been really awesome to see, a piece of artwork that you sent in get published in a nationally syndicated comic book like this. That's really cool. We then once again see the same 2 advertisements that have appeared in every single issue of the Angela miniseries. One for the Angela action figure that will be produced by Todd Toys, not McFarlane Toys at this point, and Angel's Visitations by Neil Gaiman. And I've never seen a copy of this book, but as I stated in my video on the first issue, if I ever did come across one, I'd probably buy it because I am interested in what it's about. And on the final page of the book, we see an advertisement for the Spawn trading cards from Wildstorm Productions. I actually had well, I don't know if I still have them, but at one point I had quite a few of these trading cards. I don't like them for two reasons. Number one, I found the art on these trading cards to be rather subpar of what you would expect for Spawn trading cards, especially when, you know, the majority of the artwork that we've seen of Spawn up until this point has been either drawn by Todd McFarlane himself or Greg Capullo, well, I mean, for the very short period that Bart Sears did the Violator miniseries, these were not necessarily top tier artists that were working on these cards. There's also the problem that these cards are not the standard trading card size. They're roughly the same width, but they're about an inch taller than normal trading cards. And I guess this was the idea. They were supposed to be more premium or whatever and have more artwork on them. That's all well and good. The problem is that being this odd size, they don't fit in trading card sleeves at all. There was not the individual sleeves, not the full page sleeves that you would put in a binder. So you really had no way to protect these things and store them. It was super annoying. And, you know, credit to Todd for trying to do something a little outside the box. But, you know, when you're the only person who's trying to go, you know, against what is otherwise a complete industry standard, you're more or less creating an annoyance than being, you know, unique or different. It's like, just make a trading card and make it the same size as all the other trading cards. People would have bought it. You didn't have to do some weird gimmick card like this. And on the reverse inside cover, we see an ad for Spawn number 29, Spawn, Death, and God. If you are a subscriber of the channel, you may know that at the time I'm recording this video, I have not made it to Spawn number 29 yet. In fact, last week's video was Spawn number 21. Don't worry, we will get to Spawn number 29 at some point, and if you subscribe, you will get the updates to know when that happens. And that was Angela number 3. Overall, I thought it was a pretty good conclusion to the series. I liked the open ending where we don't exactly know what Angela's plans are going forward, but we see her, you know, basically venturing off into the regions of space to create a new life for herself. There was no wrap up to what was going on with Spawn, but that's okay because that bleeds directly into the ongoing main Spawn series, as we will see in the future. You know, artwork on this series was great. I love Greg Capullo's stuff. I thought the writing was intriguing. It was cool to see, you know, more about like what's going on in heaven, the idea of the city of glass that is Elysium, and, you know, get a little bit deeper into the greater lore of the Spawn universe. Granted, I don't know how much of this actually still pertains to the Spawn universe now that Todd doesn't own Angela and all that kind of stuff. There's some little bit of rigmarole going on there, and some of this stuff had to be retconned because of it and blah, blah, blah. But as it stands now, the series by itself holds its own. And, you know, if you have a chance to buy it, go ahead. I mean, you won't regret it. It's a fun series to read through. The artwork is stellar. But again, these are just my opinions. Your opinions could easily vary. You may have hated everything about this and thought it was the worst miniseries you ever read. But if so, that's okay, because everybody's entitled to their own opinion. If you enjoyed today's video, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks for stopping by. Have a great day.